So this week is Packer bye week, right? And as a result, right, with no opponent to preview, no game to break down really, and us unsure, what the playoff situation is going to look like. Packer fans, the media, right, we all had to find things to talk about. And I know for me personally, on Tuesday morning on BJ and the Bear, the 17 minutes that I was on the radio or 18 minutes or whatever it was, we spent almost our entire time talking about Jordan Love. Like how we got on that topic is a whole nother story, but it really made me think. And Andy Herman released a really good video talking about Packers organizational philosophy. And I'm not going to do the exact same thing. If you want to hear that opinion, you can, again, watch the video on our YouTube page here that we released really in November, I believe, to kind of talk through that philosophy that Andy did a great job, obviously, highlighting as well. You can listen to past episodes. You listen to the draft review and hear why the Packers took Jordan Love and why that's okay, right? You guys can go back, listen to old episodes of the podcast because we've been on this, we've been banging this drum, since the pick was had. Now, again, I don't want to tell people to like the pick or not like the pick, okay? At the end of the day, when the Packers took Jordan Love, I was extremely frustrated because of the way the draft was playing out leading up until getting, ultimately Jordan Love and not getting the players that I really wanted the Packers to get. Now, do I believe that the Packers had to take a receiver in the first round? No. And again, I think if we talk about organizational philosophy, the reason I believe that is I don't think you should be taking players because you need them in any scenario, right? And I think the Packers offseason proves that, right? If you really look at their primary losses in the offseason, you see Blake Martinez and you see Brian Bulaga, okay? They chose to spend free agent dollars on Christian Kirksey and Rick Wagner. Again, guys they could afford, guys that fit in their salary cap situation, but guys that gave them a veteran presence and a veteran option that they didn't have to draft an inside linebacker in the first round and say, hey, you got to be our starter and replace Blake Martinez. That's what good teams do. The draft supplements and augments your roster and allows you to acquire players at the best price point possible. You think about the salaries that you're paying on a guy that's starting for you. That was a second round pick like Elton Jenkins. And that's not even getting into, if you hit on a third rounder or a fourth rounder or a fifth rounder or a sixth rounder, right? Like if we look up Elton Jenkins' salary, guys, it's under $2 million for an all-pro, for a guy that's playing in the Pro Bowl, right? So at the time when they took Elton Jenkins, I thought to myself, why did they take Elton Jenkins? I wanted A.J. Brown. And yes, A.J. Brown would make the Packers better, right? But they got the right player. I mean that's the reality of it. And they have an idea of what's on their roster, what are the positions they value the most, and how do they use those guys that they value to appropriate the amount of the correct resources to those positions, right? So using the example, right? You draft, you develop, you get David Bakhtiari in a position that you normally don't find your left tackles. You developed and got this guy to the point where, and through his own hard work, where he signed a huge first contract. Now he's up for free agency at 29 years old. You sign him to a huge second contract and make him the highest paid offensive lineman in football. He's a left tackle, right? You're appropriating resources based on absolutely he's the best player at his position. He's a first team all-pro, right? So you can argue semantics of who's maybe a better left tackle than him, but the reality of it is he's one of the best, right? And it's left tackle. It's the blind side, the pillar of your offensive line behind quarterback. You're going to allocate those resources at quarterback. And while I am a team run the ball, team pay Aaron Jones guy, the reality of it is running backs have traditionally not been the best investment to allocate a variety of different dollars to. It just hasn't been, right? So again, let's use Elton Jenkins as the example. His cap number in 2020 is $1.5 million for an all-pro, right? Now, again, he's a guard. So you allocated draft capital to a position of need, an elite player that has extreme versatility, right? But you're not allocating a lot of dollars. And that's what you have to balance throughout this process in building truly the best roster possible. Now, again, I understand the frustrations. I understand why when the Packers don't pull the pin on trading for Robbie Anderson last year or Will Fuller. I understand the frustrations because in people's mind, right, Gutekunst is doing the same thing Ted Thompson did. But that's not true. When Ted Thompson had success, he did supplement the roster early in his career. He got some big name free agents, Ryan Pickett, Charles Woodson, right? Like we know the names, right? But he hit on his draft picks that he was able to build a roster where he didn't need to use free agency a ton. Should he have? Absolutely, right? We all witness seasons where MD Jennings and Jerron McMillan are playing starting safety for them because they don't have a better option. And that's just not good enough, right? But the biggest thing is as we think through how did Ted Thompson act? When Ted Thompson missed on players, he needed to use free agency to fill those gaps. And at times they were too patient with players. At times they had a hard time admitting they were wrong. And what you're seeing with Gutekunst, again, is I got Wagner, but I still drafted 2 offensive linemen. I got Christian Kirksey, but I still drafted Kamal Martin, right? I'm using undrafted free agency to get Chris Barnes, right? I used the trade market to acquire more draft picks by dealing Damaris Randall and Hocklin Dix and other people, right? I am allowing some people that we don't feel are worth the price point based on the age, Brian Bulaga and Blake Martinez. Now, Blake Martinez played really well in New York, but Brian Bulaga has struggled to stay healthy all year, right? So again, we could say, oh man, they should have kept Blake Martinez. I will tell you this. Go back and look at Twitter, people. You all were ecstatic when Blake Martinez left. You believed he was a big part of the problem. So my point to all this, right, is you're allocating resources, right, and saying, nope, we don't feel that that price point is worth that player. And then what are you doing? You're netting compensation picks, because you lost those players in free agency and they signed for large contracts, right? Packers are going to be in that position next year. They're going to be in that position where Kevin King, Corey Linsley, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, they can't sign them all. And they're going to get decent deals, whether they get them with the Packers or not. They're going to have the ability to get compensation picks. So how does this tie into Jordan Love? Okay. It ties into Jordan Love for a couple of reasons. Number one, let's just talk about acquiring quarterbacks. Okay. If you look at the last 5 years of the draft, okay, there have been 18 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. Last year, there were 4. Okay, Jordan Love being the player the Packers traded up for at 26 to be the 4th one in the first round. Joe Burrow went number 1. Tua went number 5. Justin Herbert went number 6. Okay, obviously Packers 13-3 football team. None of those 3 players did the Packers have the capital to go up and get. Now we can argue semantics if those 3 are franchise quarterbacks, if they're the guys that you'd want replacing Aaron Rodgers, blah 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 blah. You may believe in Tua, you may not. You may think Justin Herbert is someone that was worth trading all the way up for, and you wait till Aaron Rodgers is 40 and you do what you got to do to go get that guy. It's fine, okay? But the Packers were at 28. They gave up a 3rd round pick to move up 2 spots, okay? And they were able to have Jordan Love, by most people graded as a 1st round pick, by some people as high as a 15, and by some people the 3rd quarterback, but definitely a quarterback that had the potential highest ceiling. And you can hear Matt McCoy talk about that in past episodes of the Football First podcast. Okay, they were able to get him in the 1st round, and they had to give up a 3rd round pick, or 4th round pick. I'm sorry, a 4th round pick to move up 2 spots. What would it have cost to get up in the top 10 to get one of those guys? I don't think it's possible. Okay. Then you look at 2019, 3 quarterbacks were taken. Now the Packers had the 12th pick in the draft, which they used on Rashawn Gary. Okay. Kyler Murray went 1. Daniel Jones went 6. Dwayne Haskins went 15. But John, they could have took Dwayne Haskins. Could have sat him for a couple of years. He could have developed. We'll get to that later. We'll get to how the window to replace Aaron Rodgers really didn't start until this draft. Okay, based on his contract and all those type of figures. On top of that, Look at where Rashawn Gary is now. And look at where Dwayne Haskins is. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, Rashawn Gary is a player that is going to force the Packers to have to make a hard decision and probably get rid of Preston Smith, because Rashawn Gary is developing into the player that they thought he was when they took him at 12. Okay, one of their best players defensively this year, and over the last 6 weeks has been absolutely a force defensively. Okay, really critical to remember. Look at that 2019 draft. Look at, Gary, look at Savage, look at Elton Jenkins, look at Kingsley Keke, right? Look at how those guys got some run, right, in 2019, and now in 2020 in their second year. Now look at where they are, right? It's the same way I would look at the 2020 draft, right? It's not about getting these guys on the field right away. It's about how are you positioning them as part of the equation, as part of your roster construction as you move forward. 2018, 5 quarterbacks were taken in the first round. Baker Mayfield, number 1, Sam Darnold, number 3, Josh Allen, number 7, Josh Rosen, number 10, and then Lamar Jackson went at 32. The Packers had the 14th pick of the draft. Now, could they have traded up to 10? Probably, and got Josh Rosen? Sure. Okay. Could they have taken Lamar Jackson? Sure. Right? They traded back. They acquired a second first-round pick and Jair Alexander. Okay. In 2017, Mitch Trubisky, number 2, Mahomes 10, Watson 12. Packers were at 30. They traded back to 33. Again, not in position. So, guys, what's the common theme here? The common theme here is based on the history of the Packers and the fact that they have been a competitive football team that is generally picking in the 20s or later, what quarterbacks are falling to you, okay? In 2016, Paxton Lynch was taken at 26. Lamar Jackson, like we said, at 32. Jordan Love at 26. Guys, I went all the way back to 2015. There's just no one, right? And if you look at the 2018 draft, Baker Mayfield, I don't want to say the jury's still out. I think Cleveland found the guy that's going to be their quarterback, but I don't think you're going to see Baker Mayfield in the tier of, Breeze, Brady, Rodgers, guys like that. I just don't think that's the type of guy he is. Sam Darnold, absolute train wreck in New York. Now, you can blame him. You cannot blame him. That's irrelevant. Absolute train wreck with what's happened to that kid since he's been drafted in 2018. Josh Allen at 7, absolute stud. Very, very mixed reviews about him in draft circles leading into the draft. Prior to the year, some people thought he was the number 1 player in the draft. As draft happened, I remember the Bills getting criticized tremendously for taking him at 7 over Josh Rosen, who, got taken in the first round, pick number 10 by the Cardinals. The next year they took Kyler Murray number 1, right? Just look at the amount of turnover at this position, but how it can be absolutely situational. It can be player based, but there's clearly a huge delta between getting that player to be what you think he can be projection wise and what he really is. And when you identify a player that has the ability to be your franchise guy, you have to pull the pin. And here's what I would say. This is why it makes sense. Aaron Rodgers entering the season had 4 years left on his contract. He is signed for 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. 4 years. Okay. We got an MVP season out of Aaron Rodgers in 2020. And I would argue Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback in 2021. And I would argue he's probably the quarterback in 2022. So Jordan Love, who mechanically and by all indications was not ready to play in year 1 in the NFL, got a full year to redshirt and learn behind Aaron Rodgers and not put in the position that Tua did, where he replaced a guy that was 3-3 as a starter, had some success, but didn't really perform well, was pulled multiple times in games. Jordan Love was never put in that position. Jordan Love just has to stay off Twitter and not hear people's opinion on his draft pick, and he's fine. Okay. In year 2, he's probably going to get the same position, most likely be the backup and be active on game days, because I highly doubt that they bring Tim Boyle back as a restricted free agent. Then the real debate starts. Okay. In 2022, we are talking about a salary cap hit for Aaron Rodgers that, is 39, almost $40 million. And the biggest thing about that situation, right, is we know where we're at right now with the Packers salary cap position. I mean, Ken Ingles did a projection today that they're probably, with how the cap works throughout the season, $32 million over the cap if it is 175 like people are projecting it to be. But in 2022, he has a $39 million cap hit, $17 million of dead money. Right? You can clear $22 million and move on to Jordan Love, and that's what people are concerned about. People are concerned because they don't want to see Aaron Rodgers leave Green Bay and play in another uniform, and neither do I. But we also, and why we went back and talked about player acquisition and allocating resources, we have to be realistic here. We have to be realistic and say, Aaron Rodgers is 37. I feel in 2021, he will be the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers at age 38. At age 39, you're paying him $39 million. You can save $22 million and use towards, at that time, a Jair Alexander extension. That's going to have to happen, right? And if Jordan Love is ready, you are playing a quarterback on a rookie contract. Now, could he come back? Could he play in 2022? Absolutely, right? Could they move on from him in 2023, the last year of his contract? His cap number actually drops, and the dead money is only $2 million. You'd save $26 million, even though his cap number is only $28 million. Or Aaron Rodgers could play all 4 years for the Green Bay Packers because his performance dictates them not moving past him. And as a result, you would start Jordan Love in the last year of his rookie contract on his 5th-year option. Aaron Rodgers isn't under contract for that year. The quarterback window to replace Aaron Rodgers started in this draft. They identified the player that could potentially replace Aaron, and they took him. And while you might have wanted Patrick Queen, like I did, you may have wanted a wide receiver, like a lot of people. Quarterback is the hardest position to fill. There are more mistakes made at that position. And the largest reason is because how teams prepare the player and how they equip them to succeed. The Packers allowed Jordan Love to redshirt this year and learn from Aaron Rodgers. And most likely that'll happen for at least 2 years. I think the clock starts at 2022. And while I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers play for someone else, the clock started this year. And they were a 13-3 football team that is also 13-3 this year. It's the number 1 seed in the NFL, and they could use that pick to benefit them long-term, hopefully, right? Again, it's all hope. Anytime you take a player, it's hope, right? But it's a calculated gamble at a position that you can't gamble at and win on Sundays. So that's our quick analysis that probably wasn't as quick as I thought it was going to be.